The XRP system will undergo significant changes in order to comply with the regulations. Let's first watch these recent films that outline Ripple's objectives. It's also worth seeing this new film regarding Ripple's Fed Master account. This film will discuss all of these topics and more. I hope you're having a good Saturday. Let's get going. Do you believe that the way cross-border funds operate will undergo significant changes? Because it's difficult to refuse new instruments that improve things, isn't it? Additionally, clearing a cross-border payment in seconds as opposed to 2 weeks would be preferable. We ought to take the action that permits that to occur. All right. In terms of stable currencies, I believe we're putting all our eggs in one basket if the US government doesn't make significant changes. No, the entire bank isn't even using our digital currency. Even if a new president is elected in 2029 and permits the Fed to create a digital dollar, it may already be too late. All right? This is due to the fact that some of these options are leaving China so fast. As a stable, well-regulated currency ecosystem develops, I believe we must figure out how to safeguard American customers and ensure they don't lose their money in a scam or something similar. In this manner, the ecosystem will not be exploited for illicit or dishonest purposes. This is crucial because the AML KYC regulations ensure that they aren't being exploited to avoid penalties. That's feasible, in my opinion. You could make it such that the US can penalize people in the same manner as they now do in order to create a stable coin situation. That would be great, indeed. In my opinion, the long-term benefits of using the dollar to finance Iran's nuclear program or Putin's imperialism outweigh the costs. Much is happening. Digital currencies issued by central banks come in two varieties. The central bank and the banks engage in trading. Then there is the store form. Do you concur? Ordinary individuals and companies. If we had a digital dollar or whatever, we would use that in real life. He made a crucial statement. We won't even pursue a CBDC in significant quantities. Our central banks can save money, expedite processes, and accomplish many other positive goals. However, due to the central bank's issue with the digital currency, we didn't want to do any of those things. Since 90% of other nations' central banks are developing some form of digital currency, people may not be very familiar with it. China is already yours. They should get rid of theirs as there are already live ones in India and other countries. The budgets of those places benefit from it. We can discuss. I understand that this has nothing to do with control or anything else, but I would like to point out that in order to save money, the government ought to consider establishing a large CBDC. Then why don't they? You understand me as well as I do. He claims that until the next president resigns, there may not be anything we can do about it. That's simply a problem we must face. All right. The Federal Reserve has a primary account with Ripple. Play now. Ripple chose to simultaneously pursue two alternative paths since they didn't want to take a chance. Their goal is to create a national trust bank and take over the Federal Reserve's payment system. They are no longer required to use other banks. They can deposit their funds and send them directly to the Federal Reserve. In actuality, this is the next phase in the process. To put it briefly, he is claiming that Teos, Finistra, and the business he does not mention is called CGI Worldwide. Since the Fed has connections to these businesses, Ripple is connected to each of them. Should Ripple obtain a separate license to operate as a bank, it will be avoiding these middlemen and having a direct line to the Fed. If they so choose, the government could begin utilizing Ripple's technology and the XRP system immediately at the Fed. Isn't that where the exciting part begins? The US government could decide that the XRP ledger can house both US and foreign funds if they so choose, according to a lot of community members. It's possible that RLUSD will prove to be a secure currency for the US dollar. Although it's yet unclear, we hope that will occur here. We aren't entirely certain, that is, it will take place. That's what the locals believe. All I want to say is that they both employed this technique simultaneously. I agree with Ted. Looking back, I'm not surprised either, but I'm shocked at how quickly everything transpired. It just serves to demonstrate that the current competitiveness of the digital goods market is appropriate, given the way the laws are set up. After the SEC was shut down, the news did surface a few hours, or perhaps a day later. The SEC is The target of this case was now at last over. I also believed that to be a contributing factor. You mentioned it in passing, but I would really like to hear more. These are the primary ways that Circle's approach differs from Ripple's. In a sense, Circle UDC is currently operational on several blockchain networks. In addition to Ethereum, the project is currently operational on over a dozen other cryptocurrencies. It contains more than 30 distinct blockchains. The Ripple network includes the RLUSD. That is a significant shift. You make a valid point when you say that Ripple intends to build a master account at the Federal Reserve by attempting to own and manage the infrastructure of all of its services. At least for the time being, this is significantly different from Circle's approach. This update was implemented by Ripple in 2022 or 2023. How they respond to it will be interesting to observe. Another large bank was unsuccessful in its attempt to open a master account with the Federal Reserve. They repeatedly broke the law in an attempt to get entry. We will be discussing Caitlin Long. We're discussing Caitlin Long's attempt to overturn that choice, but ultimately they were unsuccessful. This is the second time we've seen a business that exclusively sells digital items attempt to open a Federal Reserve account. One main account this time. It will be interesting to observe how that plays out in this new location because of this. It will be intriguing to observe whether the rival waits for events to unfold or begins attempting to obtain a master account at the Federal Reserve as well. All right, give it a minute. I simply must acquire. Here are some details. What number of chains does USD survive on? But it's on much more than that. Hold on a second. This page has been modified. That was not what I expected them to do. Hold on a second. Coins with a consistent market worth. All right, let's get going. Remember that it's on 112 USDC chains. 112 chains. They keep adding, wow. Although it's currently on 112 links, there are obvious bands that aren't used or well known. That's absurd. That's quite a bit. It wasn't quite that large the last time I checked. Additionally, I believe that Ripple stablecoin is present on both Ethereum and the XRP ledger. Nevertheless, because it has some pretty awesome material, I wanted to discuss it. We must first observe the outcome of this. We might not hear back from Ripple for its national bank license until November or December, but that should happen eventually. It requires roughly 4 or 5 months in most cases. Sue is now on track for November and December as a result. Assume that while Ripple's banking license is authorized in November or December, ETFs are approved in October. Those unfamiliar with XRP or cryptocurrencies could believe, wow, Ripple has a lot of power that could make prices go up a lot. Such knowledge, in my opinion, will cause people to experience FOMO, or the fear of missing out. Let's see how it turns out. Despite being dated roughly 2 months ago,